And then going by UBOS, you know this Bureau of Statistics, they always tell us to reflect. So I'm also going to ask you to reflect in the last 12 or 14 hours. What meal did you have? And how was that meal prepared? Energy used. Was it charcoal? Was it LPG? Was it fuel wood? Was it electricity? Ask your neighbor. And then I will come back and see how they left. And I will ask a few of you to tell us what your neighbors have said. If there is no left-hand neighbor, turn on your right. Are we done? Yeah? Oh, by the way, I forgot. There may be those who don't know how the last meal was prepared, which energy source was used. So if they don't know, also indicate that they are not aware. Okay? Okay, I think we are done. And I would like to start at the far end. Sorry, there's this pillar. The last table. I'll pick one person there to tell us about one of the neighbors on that table. Who is volunteering? The table where my media, okay, Dr. Ibrahim is volunteering. All right. Unfortunately, I see no mics. Okay.
It's next to a group of media gurus. My most immediate neighbor is Aloysius from New Vision. He had a meal cooked with firewood on his way to this place.
And where does he reside?
In Kasubi.
Kasubi. Okay, thanks. Next, random selection. I said keep left. So the left-hand side, there's a table here on my left. Let's hear from you. They had dodged the exercise, not knowing I was watching them, you know. But it's okay. Okay, let's hear from you.
That is very complicated. Yes, good morning. My name is Anguzu James. I work with Uganda Bureau of Statistics. Now I'm sitting next to a gentleman called Junior. That is it, Wamala? Junior Wamala. He stays in Chira. Last evening, there was food prepared. They used the charcoal. He stays in Chira. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. We come to the center table. The table is full of ladies, mainly. It's that one. That one, yeah.
Well, good morning, everyone. Thank you for having me. My name is Camilla, and I'm sitting next to, on my left, the gentleman, Bukurach, if I'm saying that correctly. He's a farmer. He's coming from far, and I
come from Gulu. Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
And his delicious meal yesterday was cooked with charcoal.
What meal was it?
Oh.
My name, Wakoraj Picho. The meal, I had beans with the rice.
Okay, thank you. Okay, we are moving to the last one, more or less. The back one, the back right. There, where you're living, that one. Yeah. And then we'll come one here, and we'll end that exercise.
Good morning, everyone. All protocol observed. My name is Hilary Dilemna, working with the Economic Policy Research Center. Yeah, my neighbor, the last meal she ate was prepared by gas.
And what
she's
food
called
was it?
Sheila from Economic Policy.
What food was it?
The food was chicken and rice.
Chicken and rice. Thank you. Okay. Move, Regan, move to my far right. And then we'll end here at the center.
Good morning. We traveled from Gulu yesterday, dined somewhere in Matuga, on a meal cooked with the firewood. That must have traveled as far as we traveled. And this morning we have had coffee made with electricity.
Thank you. Okay. Last table. Here, center table. The center table. Okay.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Claire Mugumya. I am a member of parliament. I represent a district called Isinjiro. From far southwestern region. My neighbor here is called Patrick Alan Awene. He works with Up Uganda, and he cooks strictly with electricity. But he's lucky, he stays alone. When the power goes off, he can move to the next restaurant and have a meal. Actually, last night he took tea.
Okay.
Boiled in a kettle.
Okay.
And took tea with the bread.
All right. Okay.
As for me,
thank you so much.
As for me, I have tried so many options of cooking. I will tell you later.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. At least we know a few of our neighbors, isn't it? But the purpose of this exercise was really to make us reflect. Reflect on the food we eat, how it is prepared, on where we reside. When I was growing up, we used to talk about the 7 hills of Kampala. Today, I don't know how many hills make up Kampala. But as I was growing up, all these hills had trees on them. Today, we have houses, and some 10, 15 years ago, the houses were bungalows. Now we have high-rise buildings. When we came here, we used roads. What do those roads, when they are being constructed, what happens? We clear vegetation. We clear trees. We clear wetlands. But when it comes to the food we eat, we tend to forget that also agriculture is creating destruction to the environment. But we are here today to reflect on how all these issues interface around charcoal. And charcoal is different. That for it, we are very sure, 100% sure, that to get charcoal, a tree has to have been fallen. Is that true? Why am I bringing this argument? is that when you're in these technical meetings, people are always arguing. Is it charcoal alone that is causing destruction to the environment? Others say it's agriculture that's doing more. But we forget about housing, we forget about the roads. So as we come here to discuss charcoal, let us not forget to put this in the broader perspective of livelihoods, of the environment, of health issues, and of the kinds of policies we do. When we are doing policies around charcoal, do we look at it broadly or not? So we are really here to discuss that dilemma of how do we ensure we have sustainable charcoal production without affecting our livelihoods, without affecting our environment, without affecting our health, and also ensuring that we don't deprive the poor of survival mechanisms. So without wasting more time, allow me now to invite the Executive Director of EPRC, Dr. Sarah Sewanyana, to deliver her welcome remarks. You're most welcome. Please, thank you so much. Good morning, everyone. I cannot see people behind the pillar, I don't know. But good morning. Good morning, those who are behind this big pillar. The honorable members of parliament here present, representatives of the government of Uganda ministries, departments and agencies, representatives from the research department of parliament, our development partners, the civil society organizations, members of academia, members of think tanks, the media, ladies and gentlemen. It gives me great pleasure to welcome you all to this environment policy dialogue on the theme, the dilemma of attaining sustainable charcoal production and utilization in Uganda. This is our first public dialogue under our environment policy dialogue. What we've decided to do as the center, that every quarter of the financial year, we shall be presenting something on the environment. So this is the first one. So we are grateful that you have been able to make it. Thank you so much for sparing your valuable time to come and join us to this important event. The issue of charcoal is not just about environment. It is also a matter of livelihoods, energy access, and the everyday reality of millions of Ugandan households. Ladies and gentlemen, charcoal remains one of the most widely used cooking energy sources in Uganda, with about half of the urban households using charcoal. And when you try to put Kampala out, we have 7 in every 7 households. In every 10 households, 7 are using charcoal for cooking. And why is this? It is because charcoal is an affordable energy source. And we also know that the charcoal subsector supports over 200 employment or jobs across the country, from producers, transporters, traders, and the retailers. So we need to keep these figures in our heads so that when we come to your discussion, you go back to what these figures mean. So notwithstanding its importance in people's livelihood, charcoal presents a challenge. And it's a challenge in case of Uganda, where we see the population is growing so fast, and we also see urbanization is also growing so fast. So the growing demand for charcoal has partly, I know the moderator talked about it, has partly contributed to the loss of forests and woodlands in Uganda. Again, the next presentation will be able to throw more light on this. Ladies and gentlemen, there are also health concerns when we are using charcoal, which we shouldn't also throw away. Many households continue to cook using these traditional stoves that produce smoke and harmful gases. And this affects the health of our population, mainly women and children. Because of these competing realities, Uganda faces a difficult dilemma. On one hand, charcoal is a key source of energy and income earner for many people. On the other hand, we have continued unsustainable production of charcoal that threatens our forests and the environment, that supports our economy and the livelihoods. Ladies and gentlemen, addressing this dilemma requires careful thinking and balanced solutions. Policies that focus on restricting charcoal production may lead to unintentional outcomes. Okay? And we know some of the countries which have tried to ban charcoal production. We have Kenya, we have Malawi, we have Somalia, but it has led to unintended outcomes. At the same time, doing nothing risks further environmental damage and long-term economic costs. So we need to think through how do we balance all this. We are also aware that Uganda has committed itself at the global level and also committed itself in its national development plan. So when you look at the national development plan, government intends to reduce the share of traditional biogas in the energy mix from 75 to 50% by 2030, and increase clean energy for cooking from 25% to 50% again by 2030. These are ambitious targets, okay? And us as EPRC, we positioned ourselves to be able to support government in terms of tracking some of these commitments to see whether we are making any progress or not. So this dialogue, therefore, provides an opportunity for all of us to come together and reflect on the practical solutions. Specifically, our discussions today should help us to answer some of these policy questions. How can Uganda promote more sustainable ways of producing charcoal while protecting forests and natural resources? The second one, what cleaner and more affordable cooking alternatives can realistically replace charcoal for households, especially for the low-income families? We know that even the better-off households are still relying more on electricity, on charcoal, but we want to make sure that we don't leave anybody behind if we speak about just transitions. So number 3, how can policies and regulations be strengthened and we effectively implement both environmental protection and livelihoods of people working in the charcoal ecosystem? The last one, what role can technology innovation and private sector investment play in helping Uganda move toward clean and more efficient cooking energy? So those are some of the questions that we need to reflect on and see what we can be able to get out of this at the end of this event. Ladies and gentlemen, these are not simple policy questions, but bringing together different perspectives and experiences, we can begin to identify solutions that are both practical and speak to the just transition in the charcoal ecosystem. It's also important to remember that any transition away from unsustainable charcoal production must be gradual and inclusive. The people who depend on the charcoal sector for their income should not be left behind. Instead, they should be supported with alternative opportunities, improved technologies, and better access to markets. Likewise, households will adapt cleaner cooking options only if they are affordable, accessible, and reliable. This means that the transition must be supported by the right policies, investments, and public awareness. Ladies and gentlemen, today's dialogue is therefore an important step towards building a shared understanding of the opportunities. I'm sure we shall be able to see the opportunities in there, not only challenges, opportunities, challenges, and also try to identify realistic pathways that Uganda has to take so that you can also be able to inform the National Development Plan implementation. So I need to recognize the government of Uganda efforts to tackle the charcoal dilemma through its ministries, departments, and agencies. I know the Ministry of Energy is doing something in there, the Office of the President, the National Forest Authority, the local government, as well as the Ministry of Finance. But the question that we have to ask ourselves, are their actions coordinated? Are they coordinated to take us to another level or not? So I also want to recognize the development partners, the civil society organizations, private sector actors, religious leaders, and cultural leaders who continue to contribute to the discussions and efforts to promote sustainable energy and environmental management. But what I need you to reflect on today, what is it that you can be able to do differently? We've been doing some of these things, but what is it that you can be able to do differently? And that's why we invited all the ecosystem players here to be able to discuss, want to co-create together and be able to move our country forward. Allow me to extend the Center's sincere appreciation to Government of Uganda through the Ministry of Finance, Planning and Economic Development for the financial support towards this public dialogue. So we cannot take this for granted, but we thank them for the financial support. I also want to thank the Office of the President, which was able to move around with the EPRC team as they were visiting different districts. Thank you so much. I want to thank the EPRC team led by Dr. Medina for the work well done in terms of making us to be here and listen to you on some of your findings. So ladies and gentlemen, as we proceed with our presentations and discussions, I encourage everyone to engage openly and constructively. At EPRC, we underline the word constructive engagement. We are not here to lament, but we are here to constructively think through solutions that will move us to another step. So let us share ideas, lived experiences, and evidence that can guide us better as we move forward. I want to thank you all for honoring our invitation. And also, I want to apologize for the starting a bit late, 30 minutes late. For those who were able to get here in time, our apologies for that. But I wish you all productive and fruitful deliberations for God and my country. We just had breakfast, or not yet? Okay. Thank you so much, Dr. Sewanyana, for those important opening remarks and for giving us some reflective points. The questions you've left, the 4 questions, but also the emphasis on what can we do differently. A lot has been done, but what can we do differently to ensure that we have sustainable charcoal production? And since we are an evidence-based organization, we are going to hear from the evidence that a team of researchers at EPRC has been able to put together. And they're going to make a presentation on, or titled, "Is the Continued Charcoal Dependence Sustainable for Delivering Uganda's Energy Commitments?" And this presentation is going to be made by none other than Dr. Linda Nakato, who will be doing it on behalf of the team. But before she comes up here, I would like to inform everyone here that we have tea being served at the back of the room. You can quietly stand up, not everybody at the same time, but walk at the back and then serve tea and come back and take your seat so that we can catch up on the lost time. We won't have a formal tea break, so it will be in that informal way. So feel free slowly to go and serve tea, and then you can come back. And yes, please join me in welcoming, with at least warmth, welcome Dr. Linda Nakato to deliver the presentation on "Is the Continued Charcoal Dependence Sustainable for Delivering Uganda's Energy Commitments?" Welcome, Linda.
Thank you, our moderator, for the day. Allow me to stand on the protocol already observed. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. As introduced, I am Linda Nakato, and I'll be presenting on behalf of the EPRC team so that we get to understand what this dilemma looks like if we are to attain sustainable charcoal production and utilization in Uganda. And you notice that we are coming all the way from the production side to the utilization side, looking at the value chain as it is. What does it look like? What is happening along this value chain? And if we are to move forward, how do we need to handle things as we go on along every step of the value chain? The title, as has already been mentioned, is "The Continued Charcoal Dependence Sustainable to Deliver Uganda's Energy Commitments." And to start us off, we have to first mention that we are not in a vacuum. Uganda is not suffering with this issue alone. There is charcoal being produced all over Africa. We could start from our immediate neighbors in East Africa, and has already been mentioned by Dr. Sewanyana that they've also tried measures to curb the continuous dependence on charcoal, some of which have not yielded the right consequences. We see that in Kenya, where they had a ban. We see Tanzania did not yet had a ban, but there is also a high dependence on charcoal. And if you're to move to our neighbors in the West, for example, Nigeria and Ghana, there is a high urban demand that drives the continued large-scale production of charcoal. And if you go to the Sahel region, they're also facing massive deforestation and desertification due to heavy charcoal demand. So you notice that as a country, we are not struggling with this alone, but it is good that we are seriously looking at ways to move from it. And the reason why we want to move from it is because there is a lot of negative consequences that comes with our dependence on charcoal. These include environmental impacts like deforestation, air pollution, and biodiversity loss. And then we also, of course, have health effects for those especially who work within the charcoal industry. For example, the retailers who are constantly measuring this charcoal, the charcoal dust, it causes a lot of issues when it comes to respiratory diseases. But also the consumers of charcoal, who are mainly who use it a lot, are mainly the women. You realize that it also causes some issues when it comes to health consequences. And then, of course, we have economic factors, issues of the livelihoods that we've been discussing. Yes, as we plan to dwell with this, what are we thinking for those people? We have the energy demand that we should continue to discuss, seeing that the demand is still high among households, among institutions. The demand is still high, and there's also still a high dependence on that. So the path forward, either you maintain the status quo and things remain as they are, or you start to think about sustainable alternatives. For Uganda, to move away from these issues and to move away from the effects of the continuous dependence on charcoal, we've had several energy commitments, some of which have already been mentioned, but I will highlight some. For example, if we look at our 10-fold growth strategy, it identified climate change as one of the impediments to achieving our 10-fold target. And to mitigate that, one of the key things is to fast-track mass uptake of cleaner energy sources for cooking, for example, the LPG. So you see that they identify that our continued dependence on charcoal has consequences, even achieving our 10-fold dream. And then, of course, the issue of tightening the implementation of environmental regulations. When you come to the NDP4, realize that there are clear targets, both in terms of production or in terms of protecting our natural resources, and also in terms of utilization, the sustainable energy. In the natural resources program, we see that we want to increase our area covered by forest. Remember that charcoal is one of the major contributors to forest destruction. And then, of course, when it comes to sustainable energy, we want to reduce the number of people who are using charcoal and wood from 75%. We want to cut it by 25% and hopefully push that 25% to using clean energy. That is our goal of increasing the share of clean energy used for cooking from 25% to at least 50% by the end of the NDP4 period. And of course, we have other plans like that energy transition plan. Still in the same angle, universal energy access in line with SDG 7. And then also modernize the energy system. This involves moving away from the traditional biomass, which is charcoal and wood, to cleaner energy sources. And then, of course, there's also improving energy security and affordability. But then the question is, are the commitments achievable with Uganda's persistent dependence on charcoal? If you look at the current state, for example, the most recent estimates of 2019, and this was by the World Bank, they show that the annual value of traded charcoal was 580 million. And as already has been highlighted by Dr. Simonyana, is that we still have a high dependence even on the utilization side. 48.6% of urban households use charcoal as their primary cooking fuel. And when you come to Kampala alone, that stands at 70.6%. It's still quite high. And it has implications for us achieving our energy commitments. And when it comes to the livelihood side, the employment, the NDP3, this is the most recent estimates as of 2019, around 200,000 people are employed along the value chain in production, transportation, and trade. But please note that this is just the formal side of things. Charcoal is largely informal, so this number is far larger than what we are seeing here if we are to look at the actual statistics of who is along that value chain, both directly and indirectly. And then we still highlight that this dependence, it has far-reaching implications for health and for environment. Just to highlight the environment side of things, we have seen that forest cover has been decreasing over time. If you look at from 1990, for example, we were standing at 4.9 million hectares. And if you look at the situation as of 2022, the most recent data, you realize that we are now at around 2.7 million hectares, even with some targeted interventions that we have taken along that time period. It is important to note that in the first, from 1990 to 2010, we're focusing really on poverty eradication, and we're focusing on the PIPS, the Poverty Eradication Action Plan. But then as we moved on to the NDP period, we seem to forget to